Welcome back to another episode of the Girls Cafe, where we create a caring atmosphere for emotions. This is a space for real conversations about resilience, growth, and most importantly, empowerment. I am Shauna, and today's episode, we will be discussing workplace hurt. So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and let's talk about what truly matters. So, work is where we spend so much of our time. But what happens when that becomes a source of your pain? Hmm. Have you ever left work feeling drained, not because of the job itself, but because of the way you were treated? Have you ever had a moment at work that made you feel like you were questioning your worth? Maybe it was a boss who overlooked you, a coworker who took credit for your ideas, or at least tried to take your ideas, or just a culture that made you feel invisible. I've been there. And today I want to share my personal journey of workplace hurt, but more importantly, how I found resilience on the other side. So many people experience workplace challenges. This episode is for those struggling with toxic work environments, betrayal, or feeling unseen. I jumped back into aviations back in 2018. Excited for the opportunity to be able to fly. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to get back into aviations, the travel benefits, the perks, things of that nature. But I barely even used it. So let me just put that out there. I barely used it because it quickly turned into a career journey for me. I started off as a ramp agent, which was very unfamiliar to me. I went from sitting at a desk for 16 years to now doing manual labor. But what I found was I loved everything about the role. I loved the people that I was working with. It didn't really feel like work, so I took enjoyment into coming into work. But I was only in the role for 3 weeks, right? And then I put in for a different position, which became a trainer role. I ended up getting that role. I'm not even going to go into the backstory of why I applied 3 weeks in, but I ended up getting that position, and I was in that position for 5 months before I was promoted to a safety supervisor. And I was in that role for 4 months before I got promoted to a manager. And then I did that role for 3 months before getting promoted into the safety manager role. The safety manager at the time when I was a safety supervisor, I still today consider him to be a big brother and a mentor. So we still communicate to this day, but he was one of the best people to ever work for, to give you encouragement or insight. And one of the things that he always said to me was always work for the position that you want and not the position that you have. So I always remember that. And I when I go into my work life, I try to remember that. And I live by that now, right? So I'm just giving you a little bit insight of how I move. But I get into this safety manager role. And again, I'm passionate about safety because it is personal for me. I don't know if you've ever lost someone that was close to you and had to actually pick up a phone and call their loved ones and tell them that they're not coming back home. But for me, I have, and that stuck with me. And I never wanted to do that ever again. Never wanted to experience that. So when I got the opportunity to get into safety, that was my initial goal. And that's where my passion came from outside of the fact that I've birthed 6 kids. I'm a mom, going into this. I have a stepson and things of that nature, whatever. So naturally, it comes easy to me to be protective of people or wanting to keep someone safe. So my passion may overly drive me sometimes. But either way I go, that's just me and who I am. That part will never change. So people got to get used to that side of me. I'm in this role. I'm loving the job. I love everything that I'm doing pertaining to the job. And then COVID happens. I was only in the position a short moment before COVID happens. COVID happens and then I go out, I'm sick and I'm sick for an extended period of time. But the general manager at the time, like he's calling, he's checking on me every day. I'm technically working from home. But he's still checking on me. How are you feeling? How you doing? Do y'all have something to eat? At one point, he done went grocery shopping and brought food over for my children. I had some coworkers do the same thing. Just kind of going out of their way to make sure that I was okay. So at that particular time, that's the type of and work environment that I'm dealing with. I go back to work after I'm well. Everybody's kind of furloughed, so nobody's really there. We got limited staff there, but you're still making it do with what it does. You make the best out of. every single day that you have before you. But I noticed a change in this general manager, like short tempered, um, just a nasty demeanor towards myself, things of that nature. Again, it's a little shocking to me because again, I just told you this is a person that was checking on me every single day. How you doing? The whole 9 yards to now having a short temper. Again, you could be up under a lot of stress. It still does not excuse how you speak to people. But let me just say, it's not just me that they're doing this with. This is with everyone. Again, some people can tolerate it. I can't because I'm trying to figure out where this is coming from. Again, people have already told me that this is who this person is prior to, but I'm not one of those people where I'm gonna take the word of somebody else. It has to be my experience as well for me to be like, oh, okay, no, I see what it is that you're talking about. If I never experienced that side of someone, it's gonna be hard for me to relate to your story on that, right? So now I begin to experience this side of them. Like they're making me feel a certain type of way. They're making me feel uncomfortable or making me feel like I have to walk on eggshells. Even if say, sorry for that, I had to do blah, blah, blah. Their response was always on the levels of a temper tantrum. When I say turning beet red temper tantrum of, I took time out to do blah, 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 and da, 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 da. Like, again, my apologies, you know? So every opportunity that they would get, it seemed like they would always go back into that demeanor, right? I've never been one of them people to be in a position and feel like I'm so higher than other people where I can talk down to people. I'm all about uplifting folks. I don't care what anybody tells you. I know Shauna and I know what Shauna's intentions are. So we ended up getting a new boss that we both was reporting to. And again, the behavior still continued to go on. And so finally one day I walked into our boss's office and say, hey, I have this issue. He calls us into the office for us to discuss. But again, when I care about people, if I looked up to you at one point or put you on like this pedestal, and then you disappoint me, it hurts me, it bothers me, like I feel it internally, right? So as I'm expressing myself, I begin to get, a little emotional. That's not a sign of my weakness. It's a sign that I probably care a little bit too much than what I should, or the fact that I'm trying to be professional and I can't really cuss you out the way that I want to, and so we go through this, we have our little sit down, but again, the behavior still exists. Again, it's not just with me, it's with other people too. Other people have complaints. And I quickly realized and seen that maybe the expectation that I had for my boss, nothing was ever going to change. Nothing at all. But I still continue to show up. I still continue to strive to do the best that I can in my role and my job to make a difference to keep people safe. To the point where they've given me the Regional Safety Award. Didn't even know that I was getting it just out the blue. Oh, this is for you. Like, good job, great job. So, evidently, that's telling you that I was doing something right. Okay. And so as time goes on and I start to notice that my boss doesn't really talk to me. He talks to me, but he doesn't really talk to me the way that he talks to everyone else. But again, I'm not really thinking nothing of it. Another general manager, she's like, oh, well, maybe he needs to see you more. Maybe you should go down and talk to him more. Again, if I'm in his office just shooting the breeze, then that means I'm not doing my job of protecting people. And I don't have time to sit in somebody's office. I actually come to work to actually work. But at the same time, my mind frame was I'm not coming to work to kiss anybody's ass either. Like I didn't have to kiss anybody's ass to get promoted, to move up. Why do I have to kiss ass, excuse my French, in this moment now to be heard or to be seen? So that was the feeling that I was beginning to have. The general manager that I was having an issue with, they moved him into a different role. So now his role became available. And so for me, again, I told you guys I pride myself on moving up. I'm like, I'm going to apply for this role. I even talked to other people to say, hey, do you think that I'm ready or prepared to go into this role? Because again, throughout the year, I'm one of those folks where I constantly will ask, where do you see my strengths at, and where do you see areas of improvement? Where do you think I need to grow in these areas? And if you can't really give me anything that I need to grow in, you're kind of validating me as saying, you're on the right path to success. At least that's what I would think, right? So I applied for this position. I sent a cover letter, the whole 9 yards or whatever. Well, a follow-up email basically saying, hey, I applied for this role, the whole 9 yards. They acknowledged that, they received my application. I'm getting ready to go on vacation, and my boss says, I got your resume and your application on my desk. We'll talk when you get back from vacation. So I'm like, okay. I go on vacation. I go on a cruise on top of that. And so I turn my phone on when I get off the cruise, and general manager is like, "Hey, did you know that they already found someone for that role?" So now I'm confused because I'm like, "No, I was told that when I came back from vacation that, we were going to discuss my application." They're like, "Yeah, that's what I heard." "Hmm, okay, so now I know what I'm going back into before I get to work. But my demeanor is, it is what it is. And so I get back to work, and my boss finally has a conversation with me and say, "Hey, yeah, I know, I'm sorry. Let me pause there." He didn't have that conversation then. The conversation didn't happen until I sent the email asking for an increase in my pay. Um, because again, I did my research on what the airlines is paying. I know what my responsibilities have been. I'm overseeing two contracts, both above and below wing. I'm on call 24/7. Like, I'm taking into account all of the things that they have me currently doing. So my focus is mainly on me. If they've already hired somebody else for that role, okay, fine. Let me see if I can get a pay increase, at least that, for all of the work that I am doing. Again, this thing came after you've given me a regional award and the whole 9 yards. So that's telling you that I'm on the right track and I'm doing something right. So I send the letter, and it's not until I send that letter is when I have a meeting with my boss, who then goes on to tell me about why I didn't at least get an interview for the role. And so my response back to him was, if you knew I wasn't getting the interview, why couldn't we have had that conversation prior to me going on vacation? And so it was, well, I didn't know at the time. It was a bunch of excuses, and I didn't have anybody hired. However, this is a matter of short time or whatever, but I don't put too much energy into it. So the new person that they hired, remind you, I already knew who they hired before me and him even had this conversation, but he's denying that this had even happened or existed. I also confirmed it later on down the line with the person that they hired prior to. But okay. New person gets there, um, introduces himself. Hey, how you doing? We're talking. But I quickly seen that his leadership style and my leadership style was gonna bump heads, right? Um, so we don't get off on the best foot at all. And other people can see that we're not getting off on the best foot. And so we will have moments of us bumping heads. And then you also have other people now who begin to instigate what's going on. So he don't like me, I don't like him. That's absolutely fine, but I'm still going to come in every day and I'm going to do my job. But then the work environment began to become very toxic, right? I'm looking at the shift. I'm looking at the changes, and people that I was once like this with were slowly like this, okay? Like this to this. That's me saying peace, okay? So we get to April, and remind you, I sent this letter about an increase. They had put up a position for a role that was only below wing focus. I don't apply for the role. I'm encouraging other people to apply for the role. Like, I have no interest in this position at all because, again, I feel like it's a step back for me. I know that I've already asked for an increase in my pay. That feels like a step back because it only has one focus, where my role has two focuses for two contracts, the whole 9 yards. They don't hire just one person for the role, they hire two. My boss says, yeah, I got a raise for you, but it's not what you was asking for. It's not in the budget. Hired those two positions that they hired, they were paying them what I asked for. So it's not in the budget, but yet you just gave two people, two people what I asked for, who don't even oversee half the stuff that I'm overseeing. Okay, all right. But again, I still come in, I do my job. But now they about to learn some of the stuff that I do because there's no way that I'm doing all of these things and they only have one focus. Mm-mm. So I began to get them access to certain stuff so that they can do these reports right along with me. Here's a template to this, the whole 9 yards. That's my demeanor. That's my attitude. But again, I'm going to say, I still continue to give the same amount of effort to this position that I was giving when I got the position. But the work environment, again, starts to go downhill because me and the new GM bumping heads. Everybody that I was like this with are not now picking sides. Now it's me against them. In the beginning, it was okay for me to only have to deal with one person and a bad attitude. But now when you have to deal with 8, 9 people with bad attitudes, that starts to affect your mental all day long. I don't care which way anybody tries to say that it doesn't, it does, right? So again, I start to isolate myself, kind of keep to myself, because I'm seeing that I'm being excluded from a lot of things that I should be included in pertaining to things that I oversee. People putting together safety events and they're not even in safety, or just putting the title of safety on it. People then coming and questioning me, asking me about stuff. And I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. I don't have a clue as to what you're referring to. I don't have any of this. So one day we have an incident at work, an accident, and we have to do an investigation on it. But we don't even have all of the information. I do the initial report, but I can't do my executive summary because I don't have everybody's statement. The person's statement that we're waiting on, they've already left for the day. They don't email it to us. So we have to wait until they come back in later on that night for their second shift. I leave. At this point, I've been at work an additional 3 hours that I'm not getting paid for. So I get home, it's about 8 p.m. Now, our business partner is questioning about this executive summary. How come we don't have it yet? Where is it at? Blah, blah, blah. My boss is like, hey, where are we at with it? We're nowhere with it because we're still missing this. Well, we got to get them something. Well, my computer is at work. So now I go back to work and I don't leave work until midnight. One, I'm pissed. Two, I'm tired. Three, I'm mentally drained at this point. So I finish up this executive summary. I send it off. I send an email requesting the next day off as a mental health day. That's what I label it as. I go home. I take the day off. But my team that directly reports to me, they don't know it's a mental health day. So they're still calling me at home and they talking to me about work. And this is when I find out about this flyer that goes up about a safety event. Don't know what you're talking about. Don't know what you're referring to. Don't know any of this. I go back to work. I see the flyer. I go into my office. I'm sitting there, and another manager, she comes in and she's like, you don't have anybody working your safety event? Like, she kind of said it kind of a little sassy. I said, first of all, it's not my safety event. That we'll just start there. And I don't even know what safety event you're referring to, but it's not mine. Oh, well, I was called and told to go down there. Well, they called you because they didn't call me. So eventually I said, let me go down here and see what this safety event is about. Had nothing to do with safety. Giving out stale popcorn, some games is being played, and people signing a banner. But there's no safety information given to them. So again, this is somebody trying to duplicate something that you do, but half doing it, right? So I see that. I walk out the room. I run into another one of my supervisors, and I'm like, hey. She like, don't talk to me. Like, you be acting funny. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, you don't be talking. Like, you don't be speaking to nobody. And I said, it's untrue. Like, I said, I don't think you realize that I'm on the verge of having a nervous breakdown. Let me put another pause there. Another supervisor of mine mentions this to me probably 2 days prior. Like, do you sometimes just say that you're okay when you're not? I'm like, yeah, all the time. And she said, you might want to be careful with that because you really displaying signs of having a nervous breakdown. And I'm like, I'm fine. I'll leave it at that. I'm fine. So fast forward back to these 2 days. At this point, I done started researching signs of a nervous breakdown. And I had every symptom, like she said, of a nervous breakdown. So when I see my second supervisor and she says this to me, and she's like, oh no, what's going on? And put her arm around me, I break down instantly, like, just like that. Break down, bawling in the hallway. I'm like, get me to my office because at this point, I don't want anybody else to see me, what's going on. So she rushed me down the hallway to my office. We closed the door. She's like, what's going on? And I just begin to tell her, she's like, you can't let people do that to you. Blah. Like she's just going. But I'm bawling, crying in my office, like sobbing, right? She leaves out, the door is closed. Now I can feel like tightness in my chest. I can feel it. I can feel it when I say feel it. Just thinking about it makes me feel it, right? So I can feel this happening, but I've already and went to my doctor and I talked to my doctor and told her where my stress level is. So I send my boss a message and I say, I think I need to go home. My chest is hurting right now. It may be anxiety. My doctor is aware. And tomorrow I have an intake appointment with EAP. Mind you, I started off by saying my chest is hurting. The response I got back was, okay. Um, is anyone at home? I said, yes, my children. They say, okay, let me know when you make it home. Pack up my stuff. I leave. I get home. I text and say, I'm home. They respond back and say, okay, let me know if you need anything. I instantly thought to myself, I won't be letting you know anything. Again, if I have an employee who tells me that they're having chest pains, regardless of anything else that they tell me of, my doctor is aware, or, I'm okay, or I can, whatever, I'm going to show concern about chest pains because that's nothing to mess around with. I could be having a heart attack. It could be anything. But you wait until I get home to say, let me know if you need anything. It was nothing in that moment that said, are you sure you don't need to go to the hospital? Do you need someone to walk with you to your car? Or do you need us to take you home? Or is there someone that we can call for you because we don't feel comfortable with you leaving under this condition? None of that concern. It was, all right, let me know when you make it home. So I get home. As I said, my next appointment is with the intake person. I'm on the phone. I'm talking to her again, bawling my eyes out because I don't know what's going on. I'm trying to comprehend and understand because at this point, this is really a first for me of having like a toxic work environment like this and not being able to handle or deal with it. So I'm talking to her as I'm on the phone with her. My phone is ringing. It's ringing, ringing, ringing. My work phone, that is. And I see that it's one of the managers calling me from the job. I decline the call. I finish my intake appointment. It's a video appointment. I finished that up and I called them back. And they were calling saying they were looking for some drug tests, the drug test papers. And in my head, I'm thinking, because you couldn't call anybody else but me. But at this point, they had already found them. I hang up from them and I apologize. I ain't even let her finish her sentence. It was like click. In that moment, I didn't care. Like I'm trying to work through my emotions at this point. And I immediately get another call from my boss who's like, oh, I don't know if you've seen, like we had damage, and like he's trying to walk me through it. Again, I didn't care. When he called me and asked me how I was doing, my response was, I'm here. And it just immediately went into what was happening around work, what was going on. And then it was, we need to enter this into the reporting system that our business partner uses. And I'm like, yeah, that's normal. Well, do you think you can open up your computer and do it? And I paused in that moment and I'm like, what? So I'm like, other people have access? Oh, well, those two people that, like they off from work today. Like literally, I looked around my room. I'm off from work today. Well, your new GM has access to it. Oh, yeah, I just want to make sure it's done the right way. I said, yep, okay, all right. And I hang up the phone and I lose it. When I say lose it, I lose it. I call my supervisor. And at this point, I'm definitely bawling and crying. Like, they don't give a fuck about me. And nah, 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 nah. Like, I'm just going. And she's like, Shauna, you need to calm down. Like, you need to calm down. Like, that's how irate I am at this point. She like, you need to calm. And I could feel my chest getting tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter. She's like, you need to calm down. So I finally get myself calm enough to call another GM and say, hey, this is the first GM that I had an issue with, the one that was snapping at me. At this point, we didn't move past that. But I said, can you enter this in for me? Because I'm not in a good place mentally. They give me some advice. They said, of course. But then they gave me a piece of advice and said, when you get an opportunity, go see a movie. Like that normally calms me down. I'm like, okay, thank you. But in the meantime, in that moment, I'm not thinking about seeing no movie. All I see is red at this point because it was that feeling of these people really don't care about me. It's all about the bottom line. You really don't care about my well being, how I'm feeling, what I'm going through. You don't care about my stress level. You don't care about any of those things, right? And so I hang up and I call the therapist back because I had to remind you, I just said I got off the phone with her. They were calling me while I was on the phone. I messaged her back and I said, do you believe that what I am dealing with is triggered by work or work related? She says, absolutely. Like you really need to get your emotions in check, the whole 9 yards or whatever. So I'm like, okay. I reached back out to my personal doctor and provide her that information. I'm already seeing EAP. This is what they're saying, the whole 9 yards. She goes, okay, takes me off from work. I reach out to my job, to my boss, and I say, I need you to open me up a workman's comp claim because it's been determined that my stress is due to work. They say, okay. I immediately type up a statement because, again, as the safety manager, I had to oversee workman's comp. I know what the process is, I know what I should be doing. I type up a statement and I submit it to them because they need a statement to enter into the system. A couple of days go by, still not entered. I reach back out. Hey, did you get a chance to enter my case? No, not yet, but I'll do it today. But by the way, that statement that you sent wasn't entirely factual. So now I'm baffled. I'm taken back because I'm like, what wasn't entirely factual about what has affected my mental health? Because the thing about it is, though I oversee this, if I think that you are lying about something, I can't call you a liar. I can't tell you that you fabricating something. I can't do any of that. I can take your statement, and if I believe it to be otherwise, then I submit additional information to the workman's company to say, yeah, that this is what they're saying, but this is also additional proof that we have that it may not be true. So now Workman's Comp reaches out to me. They're talking to me. I immediately ask them, is there a doctor that you guys want me to see? Because again, all I've ever dealt with is injuries, people injuring themselves. I know we send them to Concentra or, wherever. What do you do in this particular case? Do you have a doctor to see? Oh, no, no, we'll wait on, the chart notes from your doctor. I say, okay. Weeks go by. Then they finally say, we need you to see our doctor, but it's like one of their panel doctors. So this is not something that immediately happens. These appointments are weeks, sometimes months out. But I said, okay, absolutely fine. Whatever it is that you want me to do. I was off from work for 2 months, unpaid. 1, 2, 2 months, unpaid. Because again, I have to wait for this appointment. In my head, I'm like, by the time I see your doctor, I've been already worked through whatever it was that I was going through. So I already know I'm not going to be in the same mental place that I am today weeks from now. At least I'm hoping that I'm not. That was the hope. But guess what happened? The whole entire time that I was off, I was getting phone calls about what was taking place at work and the things that were being said about me. The people that I was like this with were the main ones that were kind of aiming for me to lose a job, who had things to say, negative things to say. The same individuals who used to come into my office crying about the treatment that they were receiving at work. The same individuals who I was encouraging to apply for management positions, even coaching them on interview questions, things of that nature, whatever. So it was a little baffling to me to be hearing these particular things where I'm like, oh wow. So really, they really didn't like me. They like some things about me, but they really didn't like me because none of these people are even calling to check on me. Remind you, I said off 2 months. I can count on one hand, literally one hand, how many people had actually checked on me and my well being, my mental health, the whole 9 yards. But everybody knew what was going on. Everybody going into meetings, talking to the agents and like telling all type of business because they heard it from one person and then went to the next person. And now we talking about managers spreading my personal business. So I said, oh, okay. So now I'm reaching out to HR the whole entire time that I'm off about certain stuff. And this is being said, and I'm receiving this information and blah, blah, and the whole 9 yards. So by the time I see their doctor, guess what? I wasn't healed. I was still back in that same exact place. So then it takes weeks for them to review notes. But when I went to go see their doctor, I came with receipts because that's the one thing that I'm going to do is have receipts. So I provided every email or every moment that I felt like I was being excluded from something or me constantly having to argue with somebody about them doing their job, the whole 9 yards. And then I decided I was going to go back to work a week early. So I go back to work and I get there. My demeanor, my attitude is, I'm not fucking with none of these people. Again, excuse my language, but that was my mind frame. I got nothing to say to them. I'm going to come in, I'm going to do my job, and I'm going to go home. Come in, do my job, and I'm going to go home. I'll speak. Hello? That's all you're going to get. I don't care to know about your personal life, how your kids doing, what you've been up to. I don't want to hear about any of that because I know the things that have been said about me and my absence, right? So I get back to work, and again, that's my demeanor. I see people in the hallway. Sometimes I speak, sometimes I didn't. I kept it moving, go to my office, do my job, go out, do my observations and my audits, send my end of shift report, and home I went. And one of the managers stopped one of my supervisors to tell them, like, oh, yeah, Shauna must be mad at me. And they came back to tell me, and I'm like, I'm not mad at this person. They're like, well, yeah, that's how they feel. I mean, I didn't really care how they felt, but I knew that I wasn't mad at them. And the one thing I don't need you doing is walking around telling folks that I'm mad at you. So I pulled them to the side. Hey, I heard that you said that I was mad at you. And they go, yeah, yeah. And I said, but I'm not. Yeah, you are. You are. I said, I'm not. They're like, yes, you are because I can feel you. I'm like, well, first of all, that's inappropriate. They're like, that's not what I'm saying. Like, I could feel your energy. I said, but again, I'm not mad at you. I just don't fuck with you. There's a difference. And I think I took them off guard when I said that. They're like, wait, what? Yeah, it takes too much energy for me to be mad at you. It takes less energy just not to fuck with you. And I don't fuck with y'all. I said, you guys showed me how to deal with y'all when I was off from work. I said, when you look at people as friends and they kind of want like friends, I said, that might be a far reach. You're right, because we wasn't friends. I wasn't bringing you food to eat and things of that nature prior to me going off. I wasn't talking to you about the things that I was going through. You're right. Friends might be a reach. Coworker. But remind you, this is somebody that I was really cool with from the beginning of me starting. Okay. To hear them say friends, like we ain't friends. Like anyway. But I'm like, as a coworker, nobody bothered to pick up a phone, shoot a text to check on me. Nobody. You would have thought that I personally did something to them, right? I said nobody. But for every time that y'all lost a family member, was sick, off with COVID, had anything, issues going on or whatever, you got a phone call or at least a text message from me, checking on you and praying for you. They're like, oh, well, yeah, you were. But for me, I got nothing, nothing at all. I was like I said, so with that, I just don't fuck with y'all. There's a difference. Not mad, just don't care at this point. And so I believe they went back and had a conversation with the new GM who I was having an issue with, or bumping heads, what I should say. And he sees me in the hallway and was like, and I went to go walk past him because I got nothing to say. I didn't heard all of the talking and, the whole 9 yards. But then he wanted to have a one-on-one with me. We sat down. We talked about it. I got it out. He said what he needed to say. And guess what? Today he calls me his big sister. And I tell him he's my pesky little brother. Because sometimes you need that. You need to have that conversation to get a different perspective without all of the extra noise, without all of the extra influences and the other people who have something to say. Because again, I don't care about you having a role. My issue isn't with you. My issue was with how that was handled by somebody else. Not the fact that I didn't get the position, because here I am. My issue now is the fact that I can't even get paid for all of the work that y'all want me to do. And then when I do try to do my job, the people who should be holding other people accountable, I can't even get them to do that. So the environment became very toxic, to the point where, again, I'm being excluded from decisions pertaining to safety. And then when agents begin to bring concerns to you about their safety, and I question it, and I know where it's coming from, and then I report it, I became the issue. So I'm like, okay. Then it's being said, what's next for you? Like, they might be trying to, look for a way to, let you go and things of that nature. So I go into phase 2 of aviations. I apply for a different role. I interview with it. I show them my accomplishments, what I bring to the table. They're excited. But first and foremost, they pay me my worth. They actually paid me more than what I was originally asking for at the previous company that I had given 3.5 years to. So I'm like, bet, cool. Decision pretty easy. I get to still oversee safety and I get training too, and which I had training as well at the other company. Again, I'll volunteer to help out to oversee if it's about making things better. I'm all for that, right? So I get to the new company and I became their golden child. Everything that they needed to happen, I did it, you know? Can you get this department together? I get it together. Even the business partner at that time is like, oh my God, like since you've been here, we can see how many people we got coming through the door, how many people, no longer here in the whole 9 yards. I provided some structure for them, something they didn't have. Then another position comes available. But let me pause there. The new GM at the previous company that I had an issue with, that we patched things up and we're okay now. He comes over to the new company where I am at because he gets a promotion. He's a director now. And I'm excited for him. All excited. I'm really excited for him because at least I know who I'm dealing with, right? He gets there. We have our conversation of, hey, let's make sure you focus. Let's start on a good foot. Let's start out on a good foot this time. Not how we started off the last time. And we're good. I'm checking on him, making sure he's checking on me, the whole night, even though I report directly to him. But we have our conversations. But I noticed at this point, my peer, now that I move into this other role, my peer at the time is having his own personal meetings with, the business partner. He's kind of doing his own thing. And remind you, the general manager who hired me, they let him go. So this is how my previous person that I work with is now at the new company with me, filling in this position that they made elevated and made it a different title. Anywho, we're both thinking it's a good opportunity. They offering, they paying a nice amount of money. Things are going to be great. But as I was saying, I noticed that this peer of mine is he moving and doing his own thing. So now we begin to bump heads because one, we're both the same sign. We're both Leos at this point. He want to be in charge. Not that I want to be in charge. I just want to be heard. Okay. I don't need to be in charge. He want to fire people. I'm saying, hey, can we develop folks, before we fire them? So this is how we are bumping heads. So now it gets to a point where I'm talking to HR about it because that's the process, right? That's the protocol. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to talk to HR about your issues. Sometimes HR can work with you, and sometimes when I'm learning, they will work not in your favor. Okay. But anyway, this HR tells me, you need to speak up more or go talk to this person. Now they're telling me other people to talk to, right? They're HR. You should go talk to this person, the people who oversee. Because at this point now, we don't have a director. Because unfortunately, my little brother, he not there no more. So now we got people filling in. Oh, you should go have this conversation with this person. You should tell them. So then you go to them and you tell them and you discuss it. Nothing happens. Then they say, oh, well, you should talk to. I'm talking to HR. Then it gets to a point because we go into meetings. I don't say anything. Oh, you should speak up more. You're so quiet. Like you need to speak up more for yourself. Okay. So now I began to speak up for myself. And guess what happened? I became the aggressor. How? How do I become the aggressor when I start to speak up or speak my mind? When I say, hey, you doing stuff and you ain't really caring about how you making other folks look. So then they hire a new director who came from the said previous company. Well, the business partner. He used to work for them. He comes over and just tell you already. He got short man syndrome of little man syndrome, whatever you want to call it, Napoleon syndrome. That's a better term for it. That I noticed that off rip. You try to speak, he cuts you off. He's gonna go into a story about himself. And he has temper tantrums as well. But one thing he said to me early on after meeting with the business partner, he comes back and he says, yeah, I just got finished meeting with them. You guys have a lot to fix. I'm confused now because when you say you guys, who are you referring to? Because you no longer work for them. You work over here. So you mean we have a lot to fix? Now I'm baffled. I'm confused, right? But in the process of him starting, he started off on me and my peer bumping heads. We done made up, but we'll bump heads again. We make up again and we bump heads again, right? So he done came in already to that part because under HR's direction, you need to speak up and you need to say this and you need to blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine, not a problem. So one of the departments I oversee has a damage. Not while I'm on duty. I'm off. Come in, they have a damage. Remind you, my peer calls me about the damage and I'm walking him through the steps on what to do, how to do the summary, what to say in it, the whole 9 yards or whatever. My boss don't know this, but we on the phone because at this point I'm talking to this person every single day. Okay. When I get off from work, the whole 9 yards, he on the phone. We talking about something pertaining to this job, but he doesn't know what to do. So now I'm walking him through the steps, telling him what to say, what to put in there, the whole 9 yards, whatever. Because again, when it comes to executive summaries, they stand off on them. They don't really want to do it. So I'm the person that's doing it. But okay, I come into work and this damage that occurs, my boss sends out an email to everybody effective immediately. The department now reports to my peer. There's no conversation with me. There's no none of that, right? So I'm like, okay, let me hit another pause. The day prior to that, again, I pay attention to energy, I pay attention to people, I watch how they maneuver and move and things of that nature. Even when people think I'm not paying attention, I'm paying attention. So I asked HR the day before. I said, let me ask this question. Because at this point I haven't taken any vacation. I ain't took no days off. Like I'm just racking up my vacation time and putting all my time and effort into this job. I said, um if I was to get fired, do I still get paid my vacation time? And he was like, no. And he was like, but why would you get fired? I said, let me rephrase that. If the business partner decides they no longer want me on their contract, am I still entitled to my vacation time? He was like, well, first of all, we would have to investigate why they wouldn't want you on the contract. All I'm concerned about is my vacation time at this point. And the reason why I worded it that way is because I noticed that that's how they were getting rid of folks. If the business partner said, we no longer want this person on our contract, we can't tell you what to do with your employee, but we don't want them working our contract. As a vendor, they have to respect that and say, oh, okay, well, this person can't work this particular contract. So because I know that and I've watched you let several people go using that terminology, why would I think otherwise when my new director is y'all homeboy? When I know that my new director has come in on the back end of things, not knowing what HR has told me to do pertaining to my peer. Now, my director, who doesn't speak to me prior to doing anything, who again has temper tantrums, that he's exposed this in meetings and the whole nine yards. Now I know what type of energy that you're displaying. So I'm paying attention to this. So when I walk in and I see that this department that I oversee no longer reports to me, I kind of already know what's about to happen here. So let me just get ahead of the game. At this point, I've already secured another job. I walk around to my departments this particular day, speak to them, let them know that I'll be putting in my 2-week notice. I put my 2-week notice in and I send it off through email, the same way that you sent it out to everybody else. Boss didn't have a heads up. He didn't have knowledge. I sent it to him. I sent it to HR. I sent it to a couple of people along the way that's helped me get to where I had gotten to in this company in this short period of time. And then I walked off and I went to go do some audits. Within an hour, I was receiving a text. Um, no, I take that back because I went to do my audits and I came back into the office and began packing my stuff, like cleaning off my desk and putting stuff up. And he walked to my door and said, hey, I need to see you. Because when I came back, I noticed that our HR was in the office next door, like his stuff was there. And he could barely even show up any other time, but this particular day he's there. So I kind of already know what's about to happen and what's going on. And so I go into the office and it's like, oh yeah, you put your 2-week notice in and blah, blah. We've decided to let you go today. I said, okay. And it was like, oh yeah, he's, he can help you gather your stuff. I said, my stuff is already gathered. They're like, oh, okay. Do you have any questions? Absolutely none. None whatsoever. So I go into the office at this point. Several people have come over there. Several people. Because they're like, what's going on? Because I'm at this point, I'm giving stuff away, the whole nine yards or whatever. It didn't bother me. It didn't affect me in the moment. My supervisor was expecting me to be like upset, but it was nothing for me to be upset about because It's something about being able to know what's going to happen before it happens, right? It's not because I don't feel like I've done anything wrong, but because of the lack of tools that you've given to someone. Okay. That's to the reason why I began to seek other employment prior to. And this was prior to them letting my little brother go. You know what I'm saying? Like I had already started looking because I've seen the type of company that I was working for. And when something doesn't align with my spirit, then I know that I have to do something different. I know that I have to move. I know, and a lot of people look at it as quitting, but it's not. But I know when it's time for me to shift and move. So that's why I started looking at another job prior to any of this happening, prior to damages. I mean, the damages was happening prior to that, and it's still happening today, from what I hear. But I knew that they were looking for a fall guy because even after I left from there, it was just kind of like, oh, yeah, this was the stuff that she was overseeing and this is what was done wrong or whatever. No, it was done wrong from the very beginning prior to me getting there, prior to me even walking through the door. It was already done wrong. So if you were looking for a fall guy, and that's why I said in a video that I did before, you can only blame someone for so long before the truth is actually going to reveal itself. The issue still exists today, and I ain't even been there in a year. So that says a lot, right? At least to me, it does. Maybe not to nobody else, but to me, it says a lot. So I'm like, okay. I get a phone call from somebody else at a different station who said, you put in a 2-week notice, right? I said, absolutely. And it was like, well, they have to pay you for those 2 weeks because you gave proper notice and they chose not to. Again, I didn't even know this. I was just so focused on my vacation time. So all in all, they had to end up paying me 2 weeks to sit at home um, before I started my next job anyway, along with all of my vacation time. So that was a blessing in itself. Now on to phase 3, where I'm currently at. And again, I love the company that I work for. I would just say that through and through. But in this lesson in phase 3, I had to really question myself to find out if it was me. Like, it has to be me because if I went through it the first time, if I'm going through it and I went through it the second time, if I started to experience it the third time, then it's me. And I said that prior to me even moving here. I said, if you experience it for a third time, then you're the problem. It's nobody else but you. So I done already set my mind up for that, that if I go through anything remotely similar to what I went through before, that I have to be the problem. But I came in with a different mindset. My mindset was I didn't care to meet any friends. I didn't want to get cool or close with anybody because that was my experience in number one. Didn't care, to get close to anybody the whole 9 yards. I didn't care about a promotion. I didn't care about advancing. I wanted to take a step back and just have a work-life balance. My experience from number 2 of not having. So my demeanor and my attitude when I came here was, this is what I want for myself. And the first department that they put me into, it was fine. I felt like I was back tethered to a desk. I couldn't really move around. It was, to the bathroom and back to the desk. You eat your lunch at the desk and, the whole 9 yards or whatever. So then they moved me to a different role. Again, you kind of get limited training in this particular department versus the first department I went in. That manager ensured that I was thoroughly trained. Okay. Like weeks of training. So my schedule shifted and changed a lot. That was probably like the only downside to it or whatever. So in my current place, my current home now, again, limited training, my schedule was one thing, then my schedule got changed to another thing. So I haven't experienced some things that I should. I'll just put it to you that way. But I get into this role, and one thing about me, I'm going to try my best to exceed at anything that you tell me, that I'm overseeing. So for me, it's if you don't give me a clear direction, I'm going to find my own direction. I'll create my own work. Like, I'm not one of them people where I just want to sit around and twiddle my thumbs and scroll on social media and the whole 9 yards or whatever. Like, I like to be involved. And unfortunately, here, because of a union, I can't really be hands on and involved the way that I would normally be in an operation. So again, this is me finding my way, trying to make a name for myself, put a little focus on safety, the whole 9 yards. So for me, my day might consist of me coming in and talking to the supervisors in the area that I oversee and finding out and learning from them because again, these people have been here 30, 40 years. Learning from them, like, how do you operate your belt or what do you do, the whole 9 yards or whatever. So again, I'm thinking I'm on the right track. Anything they add into it, like we need to make sure they doing blah, blah. I'm making sure I'm giving them that information. I'm making sure that I put a focus on the things that you tell us that we need to implement into the process. Okay. We finally get a new manager because they moved the manager that was there when they brought me to this department. I'm like, okay, this new manager, again, he doesn't know me. I don't know him. And it's kind of like, oh, tell me about yourself. Tell him how I'm passionate about safety. You know, that's an area that I want to get back to. What I would like to see pertaining to the area that I'm currently in is a meeting where it feels inclusive and not just we show up and be told what to do. Like if we can share ideas with each other so that we know what's happening or taking place on each shift. That's really all I'm expecting from it. They're like, oh, okay. We get to my one on one, the very first one on one that I'm having. Again, we're talking. And then they ask me the question of, like, how do you feel about working the overnight shift? And I say, I have to think on that one. Because, I got daughters, I got teenage daughters. And so I get home and I really think on it. I'm like, mm-mm. But let me say this. How do you feel about working overnights? Because we're looking for someone strong to put on overnights. I probably should take that as a compliment. But in my head, I'm trying to figure out what made me strong. How did I become the strong one? Because there's already someone on overnights. And one thing I don't like for you to talk negative about someone that's currently in a position, but trying to compliment my skill set. No. But anyway, I can't do the shift because I have teenage daughters. I'll say this again, teenage daughters. I can't leave them at home overnight by themselves. I don't feel comfortable doing that. I'm in a new environment, a new place. We ain't really quite figured it out as of yet down here. So to leave them overnight by themselves, I don't feel comfortable with that. So I hear nothing back. Fast forward to a few weeks ago. Again, have I made some mistakes along the way in this operation? I'm sure I have because, again, I started off by saying lack of training, but I ask questions. If I don't know something, I'm going to tell you that I don't know, but I will find out. Like I'll get the information to you. That's just me and how I am. I'll also seek out training. Hey, you send in this information, you're talking about blah, 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 but I'm unsure of what that is. When you get an opportunity, can you show me these areas that you are referring to? And if you tell me yes, I can do that. And then you don't do that. You can't hold me accountable because I've asked you for assistance. So fast forward to my second one on one. I'm the very last person out of everybody to get there one on one. And I get there and it's like, tell me how you've contributed or what you've done to hurt the operation. I don't think I've done anything to hurt the operation. That's my response, right? I don't think I've done anything to hurt the operation. How I think I've contributed is, and I go into what I've contributed to this operation because I know what I do on a day-to-day basis. I give employees the metric numbers. I talk to them about how many bags we've missed. Like they're now getting engaged in that and wanting to know, like, how did we do the previous day? Like things that nobody else was doing. Those are the things that I do. That because again, I'm trying to find my way. Everybody kind of got they lane. Let me find me a lane, and that's my lane, right? They go, mm-hmm. I mean, because the MODs, the crew chiefs, the CSMs, they're all saying that you're disconnected from the operation. So now I'm baffled. I'm taken back. Like, wait, what? Because in my head, again, I just said I'm the last person to get their one on one. In my head, I feel like you've had a conversation with everybody else, and everybody else has an issue with me. Then you say, yeah, and the employee said that you're unapproachable. I'm like, wait, what? Like, I'm really trying to take this in because, remind you, I said, I'm not trying to make no friends. I'm not trying to do X, Y, and Z. These people here, do I feel like I'm in a weird environment? Yes. But the people that I talk to on a day to day basis, I try not to be the, oh, hey. But guess what they done made me be? Oh, hey. You got people coming up to you who've only asked your name one time, giving you hugs. Hey, Shauna, how you doing today? People offering you food. You eat today? Did you eat? I got some food. You want some? I've had one of the supervisors buy me a whole jogging suit for Christmas, okay? Like a Grinch jogging suit so we can have matching outfits on Christmas. Cause her plan was I'ma FaceTime you and then you'll have on your shirt and I got on mine and blah, 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 blah. People who are asking, like, so what's your plans? Like, you should come karaokeing with us. So in my head, you're telling me that people are saying that I'm unapproachable, but yet I talk to these people every day, laughing and joking and the whole 9 yards. Not just the supervisors, agents as well. I done built a rapport with folks. So now you're telling me that people are telling you something totally different. So in my head, now I'm thinking like, here we go again. Dealing with fake ass people, you know what I'm saying? Like who try to be your friend and not they not your friend. And it's like I'm not even I can't even wrap my mind around what's being said because when I go to the place of here we go again, then this happens. You know, you get emotional and you like, okay. And at the same time, I'm like, Shauna, we ain't doing that. Get it together. But as much as I'm saying, get it together, it ain't getting together because you giving me all of this information. And I'm like, okay, well, how am I disconnected? Like what, how am I disconnected? And then you give me something I said on a call about I didn't know a number, but I would find out because I didn't know the number. And that was my very first call. Nobody even told me what information to have or anything like that. Like I'm confused, but somebody chimed right in and gave them the information they were asking. So how did that make me disconnected if you didn't tell me the expectations? So it's a little unfair for you to have expectations on me that I'm not aware of. And then when I say, okay, how can I fix this? How can I fix this disconnection? The response I got back was, I just need you to try. As though I don't try every day. So now I'm like, okay, then I just explained to y'all what I'm passionate about safety, the whole 9 yards. Anything that's safety related, if you tell me to do an audit, I can do them bad boys in my sleep, okay? Because again, that's stuff that I had to oversee in job number 1 and job number 2. So you say we doing these audits? Okay, bet we doing these audits then. So I do audits every day. Okay, y'all. When I say audits, audits every day. I can't speak for nobody else, but I know what I do. 30 plus audits a day. One day I did 74. Okay. But I keep my documentation of my papers that I use to do these audits because, again, I come from a safety world. You hold on to stuff for a period of time before you discard it in case there is a question. And on several occasions, when they get to saying something about on this particular day, I'm like, hold on. I go back through my little Rolodex of papers and be like, because I audited that cart to see if I actually put an audit on that cart and it was in this particular cart number right here, blah, 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 blah. So he says, yeah, it's being said that you don't do them the right way. It's been said that I do them from the system. I'm like, wait, what? Like, no, I walk each belt every day, physically checking each cart and reading bag tags. And like, I think that's the part that really got my emotions because I'm like, now you talking about my integrity. Now you talking about my character. And in so many words, you're calling me a liar. And I'm hurt behind it, right? Because I'm like, I don't know who got an issue with me. Do I make some jacked up faces? I probably do. I can admit to that. I'm not even gonna say probably. I know I do it sometimes, especially when I'm not in agreement with something. But I cannot be in agreement with something all day long and still do exactly what it is that you asked me to do because it's part of my job. But when you sit and you tell me that I'm a liar, because that's how I took it. You didn't have to call me a liar. When you told me that I was falsifying something, somebody said, because everything that he said to me came from somebody else, not something that he witnessed, because I don't see him. I barely see this person. Okay. And so it was like listening to that, it got me rattled. Rattled to the point where it stayed on my mind, in my head for a very lengthy time. And when I say lengthy, I mean lengthy, like weeks. Like I felt myself going into a depression, mainly for the simple fact of in my head, I kept replaying back, how did I get here again? At this point, I done uprooted my whole family. How did I get to this place again? What did I do? Like it had to be me. I had to say something. I had to do something. Like what did I like? Literally in my head, trying to figure it out. Figure it out to the point like it weighed. When I tell you, it weighed heavy on me for weeks. Again, I come home, it's starting to affect my home life because it's weighing heavy on me because I'm like, this is another, it's familiar to me. This is a familiar place. I've experienced this 2 times already. I can relate bits and pieces of who I think the person is who done said this. A lot of the times I feel like, people say things if they feel like you competition or if they feel like you're outshining them or whatever the case may be. I don't know. But nobody's directly said anything to me. And my initial thought when I got up after hearing that was, fuck them. As y'all see, that's my favorite word. I don't know if you can read my shirt, but it says, feeling kind of, I don't give a F-ish today. But that's how I was feeling, right? Like, yeah, been there, done this before. I know how to deal with my peers. That's my attitude. But something in me said, don't be like that, Sean. Don't repeat that same cycle. So instead, I went and shared exactly what was said to me in my one-on-one. And a lot of them that I spoke to was like, well, who did he talk to? Where did he get that information from? Even the supervisors are like, well, who did he talk to? Because he ain't talked to me because I would have told them blah, blah, blah. Employees are like, well, who did they talk? Who said that? So for the life of me, I'm trying to figure out. And I'm glad that I did that. I'm glad that I had that conversation because I would have easily reverted back to not saying anything to anybody. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a couple of them that I still don't talk to because I feel like they might be the ones that was making up their little falsified stories or me being disconnected and the whole 9 yards or whatever. So I'm like, okay, all right. I work through that. It starts to ease up off me. But one day I get up and I'm in the bathroom and I'm doing my little morning prayer. And before I know it, I'm like bawling, crying because it's you think you move past something. And I'm like, Lord, why am I going through this again? I'm in this uncomfortable space, this uncomfortable place. Like now I'm not even at home. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's kind of like, why am I going through this again? And the funny thing about it is the Lord will tell you to do something and you just won't do it. You won't do it at all. And he kept putting it on my spirit for me to reach out to my manager from phase one. And I kept saying, because I kept saying, I should reach out to him because I want to know, like, what is it that he didn't like about me? What, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what, sometimes, you be like, I don't care what people think about me because my attitude became, and I still go by this today. I don't care about what anybody is saying about me when I'm not in the room. I just don't. I don't care at all because if you can't say it to me, I don't care what you're saying when I walk out the room. I'm not going to wonder or sit and be like, "Oh, I wonder what's being said about me," because I don't care until you actually say it to me. That's when I can actually put some care around it. But it kept coming up on my spirit like, I need to know what was it about me that just wasn't aligning with him because I feel like I'm holding on to something. And what I realized is I was holding on to trauma. I was holding on to trauma from a first experience that I took into a second experience. And now I'm going through it in a third experience. And so I reached out to them on social media and said, "Hey, when you get a chance, can you give me a call?" I really wasn't expecting them to actually call me, but they did. And now, remind you, I told you this person never really had time for me when I worked with them. So I've already set the conversation up, the tone of the conversation like, "Hey, I just need 5 minutes. I just had a couple of questions that I needed to ask you. You don't have to answer them if you don't want to. It's just kind of me trying to get a grasp, understanding, um, to know, the same thing that I did when I worked there of me knowing how I'm growing within my career." And so we began to talk. And my very first question was, "What was it about me that didn't align with your leadership?" And we talked through that. And my second question was, "How do you think someone like me should have handled that?" And we talked through that. And my third question to him was, "Were you aware of the other things that I was battling at work, being excluded or feeling like you didn't have time or not being included in things that I needed to be included in, almost feeling like I wasn't a part of the team?" And I gave examples of different things the other people was also doing. And he said, "No, I wasn't aware. And that was never my intentions to make you feel like that." And we talked through that. And he said, "I don't know if you're going through something right now, but in your career, he was going to give me advice." And so I began to tell him everything that I was going through. This is what I'm currently dealing with. And I'm trying to figure out why I'm going through this again, where I know I came in with the attitude of I'm not trying to get close to nobody. I ain't trying to meet nobody. Like I thought I was protecting myself from experiencing this again. I thought I was protecting myself from that. And surprisingly, he gave me a whole lot of encouraging words and some reassurance and told me that it wasn't me. "You're smart. You know aviations. You know leadership. You for sure know safety. You know all of these things. But unfortunately, in this industry, you're going to come across some not so nice people, couple of butts, to be frank." But one thing he said to me, "But Shauna, you got to stop running." In my head, I never felt like I was running from anything. I always felt like I was running to something. I left that job to run to money. I left that job thinking I was running to peace. Um, but it wasn't that. Not to say that I couldn't find peace, because I'm actually learning to find it now that I've had this conversation with him, because what I realized, I was holding on to a trauma from those experiences in one. Some of them intentional, some of them not intentional. But I was holding on to that so tightly that every time something remotely close to that happened, I started to experience that feeling all over again. Remind you when I was talking to you guys about how my chest would get tight, and I said earlier, I could feel it now. It's like I can feel it. Though my chest isn't tight, but I can feel that moment all over again. And that's exactly what it was feeling like. Me not being able to hold my composure with somebody just tearing you down off of some he say, she say stuff. Not something that they witnessed before, but it's being said that, like just ripping you a new one. And he didn't say it in a terrible way. So let me just put it to you that way. But he said it in a condescending way. And he also said it in a way where when I try to explain myself, now it feels like I have to defend myself. It's like the look on his face is like, okay, kind of like he didn't really care to hear your part because in his head, it was his mind was already made up. So now it gives you that feeling of I gotta walk on eggshells now around here because anything that I do, any move that I make, is going to be scrutinized. And I don't like that feeling. So again, for myself, I now learned that I can't wait on other people to give me the things that I need. You reach out to people and ask for mentorship. Sometimes you get ignored. So I reach outside of my network to get mentorship. And now I have someone who mentors me pertaining to an area that I know I want to get back to, which is safety. I meet with them every month, the beginning of the month, to talk about goals that I want to do or things that I've experienced, how I feel about certain stuff pertaining to safety. I also have someone locally that I can consider a mentor now too, to help me just with the difficulties that I face on a local level, on how to get through those things. And the one thing he said is, don't let them see you sweat. Whatever you do, don't let them see you sweat. So I take all of these things that people say to me into consideration. One, to stop running. Two, not to let them see you sweat. As my first mentor told me, always work for the position that you want and not the one that you have. All of those things resonate with me and help me on a day to day basis remember exactly who I am and what I am. So, things that I wish I would have known back then. And I'm going to give this advice to anyone that is listening. You are not defined by one workplace experience. A toxic workplace or one bad experience does not define your value. Your skills, dedication, and potential are bigger than one company or one person's opinion. In my case, I done been to 3 companies. But at the same time, I'm done running. So people's opinions of me, if it's not really about my work that you've seen me do or something that I've done that you can really develop me on, your opinion doesn't matter anymore. Boundaries are a form of self-respect. I learned that saying no or walking away isn't quitting, nor is running. It's choosing yourself. Protecting your energy is necessary for long-term success. I've been talking a while, so excuse me as I get through this. I'm going to stumble because none of these podcasts are going to be perfect, and I'm not going to re-record and re-edit anything. You're going to get real conversations, like I said. Rebuilding confidence after work hurt. If you've been hurt at work, take time to rediscover what makes you great. Write down 3 things you bring to any team and remind yourself of those things daily. I'm telling you, it's easier said than done, but it wasn't until I had that conversation, like I said, with someone who I didn't think I needed to have a conversation with, but God. That's all I'm going to say. When he tells you to move, do it. It was way past overdue, but it was a conversation that needed to be had. I'm grateful and I'm thankful that I had the ability to have that conversation so that it can help me move forward. So just know that healing from workplace hurt takes time, but it is possible. You are worthy of respect, of opportunities that align with your value, and of spaces that uplift you. Always remember that. These jobs, they come and go. And trust and believe when you're no longer there, they'll be looking for someone else to replace you. So if today's episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear your story. You can send me a message or share it in the comments or pass this episode on to someone who might need it. You are not alone in this journey. As I just said, I just rambled on. telling you about my journey. So you are not alone and you're not experiencing it by yourself. So again, before you go, just subscribe, follow, or share with someone who needs to hear this message. And until next time, peace and one love. You are appreciated.